Testimony, the live stream.
New Hampshire primary.
It is 6:30 Mountain Time, which means 8:30 Eastern Time. The polls just closed on the East Coast, and we're going to talk about the primary results of New Hampshire. Unfortunately, not very suspenseful. We had hoped
No.
that we would be bringing you live updates throughout the night and talking about, you know, what's happening and how it's unwinding, but they pretty much called it right away. So
Yes.
if you're just tuning into us to find the results, Rachel, would you do the honors?
So, MSNBC is suggesting, or what do you call it? Predicting.
Projecting.
Projecting.
They're projecting onto others their insecurities
Yes.
and their anger.
Yes. Trump is the winner on the Republican side, and Bernie Sanders is the winner on the Democratic side, which is exactly what we thought that the polls predicted would happen.
The polls actually got it right. What's going to be interesting to watch here is a couple things. How big is the margin going to be between Bernie and Hillary? And the race for second, third, and fourth, because there's still so many people running on the Republican side that if you finish second or third, it's still worth a victory lap, apparently.
Yes.
So,
particularly because New Hampshire's really weird. And right now, John Kasich is in second place, and Jeb Bush is in third place, which is crazy, and Marco Rubio is in fourth place. So if Marco Rubio doesn't sort of get that together and get something better than fourth, that could be really bad for the rest of his campaign.
Yeah, a little housekeeping. You may notice if you're watching and you watched last time that the picture is much more crisp and clear. We got a new webcam.
We did.
So there's that. Hopefully there's enough light. I think we got enough light going on.
I hope so.
We're watching, of course, MSNBC for the unfolding returns and results. And while I'm checking to see that the stream is actually working online real quick, Rachel's going to explain how the primary works and how it's different from a caucus, which is what we saw last week in Iowa. So
yeah, so
I'll be right back.
Basically, the reason that we know right now at 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time who the winner is because people in New Hampshire have been voting since this morning, and in some cases in 3 different counties in New Hampshire since midnight last night. So they've had a lot more opportunity to get exit polls and to get information, whereas in Iowa, if you remember, it started at a really specific time and then lasted for a really specific time. In New Hampshire, it's like when you go vote for a general. You go in at any time on that Tuesday, you vote, and then you're done. And so by the time the polls close, they pretty much know based on exit polling and also based on just the early results what the results are going to be. So that's why that's there. A primary in New Hampshire, they have an open primary, which means you don't have to be registered to either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party to participate in the primary. Now, you do have to be an independent to vote in Republican or Democrat. So if you're a Democratic voter registered as a Democrat, you have to vote in the Democratic primaries. You can't vote in the Republican primaries. If you're a Republican, you can't vote in the Democratic primaries. But if you're registered either as an independent or if you're unaffiliated, you can choose whether you'd rather vote Republican or Democrat. In Colorado, where we are, it's closed. So you have to be registered for the party that you want to participate in the caucuses or the primaries for. Most states are closed, so New Hampshire's a little bit unusual that way, but there are several that are open. So that's kind of how that works. There was some early reporting that Hillary Clinton lost the women's vote. Right now, with early reporting, it's 54 to 46. Is that what they said?
Something like that, or
So
maybe
pretty big
53-47. But
Yeah.
it looks like she may have overall lost the women vote, and
Yeah.
they were thinking just the young women, but it's usually the older ones that actually show up and vote. So
Yeah.
this could be a bad sign. Now, before we get carried away, New Hampshire is their own thing.
Yes. They're really weird.
They're their own. Yeah, they're a little bit like Iowa in that they don't necessarily portend what's going to happen with the rest of everything else. Like back in '92 on the Republican side, you had Pat Buchanan winning the New Hampshire primary over sitting President George H.W. Bush, which was weird.
Yeah.
Of course, he obviously didn't go on to win, and he had a crazy, megamaniacal, racist, speech at the RNC, which set them back a good 8 years, and maybe somebody will do something like that again.
Here's hoping.
But yeah, what we're really watching is how big is the Sanders win going to be? If it's any more than 10 to 15 points, that gives him a lot of momentum. If Hillary can claw it back and get within 10, then that'll help her a little bit. Here's why I'm worried that's probably not going to happen. They called this really early. They called this just on like exit poll and the first few returns, and
it was
they said,
like 4% in, and we were like, "What are you doing calling it right now?" And we figured they must have had.
And there were still people waiting
really
in line,
polls.
even though the precincts were closing. And I thought they weren't supposed to do that, and I wish they wouldn't. But
Me too.
I guess if other networks do it, they have to do it. So they called it real fast, and they called it really fast on the other side too.
Yeah.
So Trump's going to win by a shit ton.
Yep.
Sanders is going to win by a shit ton. The question is how much. And
yes,
here's an interesting dichotomy for you. No matter what happens here on the Democratic side, if you finish second, you lost.
Yes.
If you're a Republican and you finish second, you're doing a victory lap.
Yeah, because
it's like a win.
It's just Donald Trump. I'm the second to Donald Trump, particularly if, well, really, if you're any of them, right? If you're Rubio, then it's like, see, I'm consistent. We don't think it's going to be Rubio. Looking at the polls, it's going to be Kasich or Bush that takes second place, which is really interesting. And then it's Cruz, and then it's Rubio, and now I don't even have that. Now Rubio's in fifth. So we'll see.
Yeah, with 12% in. And, you know, New Hampshire could be one of those weird places where but New Hampshire maybe isn't. New Hampshire, I think, and I don't remember that well the last primaries watching in New Hampshire and the results come in. I don't think it's so much like Iowa. It's like, okay, well, this batch of precincts is going to come in from the college area,
right,
whereas this batch is more, it's like more kind of uniform-ish, maybe.
Yeah.
So I don't know if these results where they are now are going to vary. I could be totally wrong about that. I'm just going on like my scant memory from 8 years ago, because there wasn't much of a primary fight on the Democratic side 4 years ago. Romney won it easily, I think, the New Hampshire primary.
Yeah, but Hillary upset Obama
in
2000.
This is what I was going to say, and now it's almost a waste of breath. What I was going to say is the polls showed Sanders with a 15, 16-point lead going into tonight, and Hillary Camp must have at least had some hope because, like I said, back in 2008, the polls were showing Obama winning by 6 to 8 points, and she wound up winning by 6 to 8 points. So she's like, well, so
that's
they
an
must have been
of like
16
12 to 16 points.
Yeah, so they must have been thinking like if we could make up close to 16 points 8 years ago, maybe we could do it again. But it doesn't look like that happened this time.
No, I think the really interesting thing for me is that Donald Trump got 34% of the vote, and directly under him are Kasich and Bush, which are two establishment candidates. The combination of their two totals is more than Trump. So New Hampshire is not really for Trump in as much as they can't decide who else they're for.
Well, they can't coalesce around one other candidate.
They can't agree.
So if you say, let me give you for instance, right now Bush, Cruz, and Rubio are polling at a combined 34%, which is exact. Oh, and Kasich. I'm sorry, throwing in Kasich, then it goes to 40. It goes to 50.
Yeah.
50%.
Yeah.
That's four establishment candidates running at 50% combined, where Trump only has 34.
Cruz is hard to say he's establishment necessarily.
No, he's not. He's not.
But he's not Trump.
Well, I'm not even counting Cruz in that. I'm
Oh, I thought he was.
Was I?
In there? Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay. Well, Kasich, Bush, and Rubio. Sorry.
Are running
at about this a little more
than Donald Trump. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, that was a mistake to include Cruz in there. But so that goes to show, as long as these jokers stay in, then Trump's got a real path to the nomination potentially.
If it's really only one or two of them, then whatever that one or two come out to be, they beat Trump.
Well, let's pretend for a hot second that all this holds up and go down the line. One, Trump is gonna he's gonna do a victory lap of some kind. It'll either be fake magnanimous or he'll rub everybody's face in the dirt. Yeah. But either way,
he's getting ready to do that. Coming up here pretty quick.
Yeah. Either way, he's gonna declare himself king of the world for winning New Hampshire. Yeah. If Kasich comes in second, that's really meaningless because
he doesn't have broad support in the rest of the country. New Hampshire's weird.
Yeah.
It matters
and
for
he doesn't
Bush
have a ton of money either.
Tremendously, because Bush has a ton of money.
I'm going to get to that. So Kasich coming in second is nice for him. Something to talk about for a few days. Yeah. Meaningless. He's not going to win South Carolina. He's not going to win
anywhere else.
Nevada probably. He's, so what?
Yeah.
Now, this is really interesting. Bush coming in third because this was Bush's last stand.
Yes.
And he expected to do better here.
Yeah.
So if Bush is able to hold on to third with 10 to 12%, is that enough fodder for him to say, hey, I'm still in this? Mm-hmm. Does he go back to his donors and say, hey, I'm not dead yet. I'm still breathing?
Look at these results like we were just talking about. Trump's not going to win.
I could beat Golden Boy Rubio. Mm-hmm. He doesn't know how to debate. So Bush may hang around a
Yeah,
little longer.
and he made some really interesting gaffes.
He no
this
longer
week in South
scares me
Carolina.
whatsoever as
No,
a
no.
candidate.
No, but just for his own political future, I think it's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
Rubio is straight up 5th right now, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and I didn't,
10%.
we us and everybody else in the world went ad nauseum on the whole Rubio robot,
Yeah.
broken record thing the other night, and
but
I
he's
thought
made some weird things this week in New Hampshire. Like,
we'll get to that in a second, but that's kind of kicked it off, right? So I was thinking like, oh, this is bad, but is it going to matter to New Hampshire voters? Well, that seemed to matter. And then what else did you notice with Rubio?
So he had a run-in with a gay man in a diner in New Hampshire, in Manchester this week. Yesterday or today, one of the two. And it was adorable. It was this big old bear with his mom and his husband. And
another bear, right?
I don't know. I didn't see the husband.
No, I didn't see him.
Maybe he was a cub. But anyway,
is that what they call them?
Yeah, the little twinks that date bears. Yeah, they're called cubs.
I'm not.
And there's
I should know. I have a lot of
strong.
A lot of gay male friends, but I'm not up on the verbiage.
Yeah. So anyway, he confronted Rubio in this diner and said, why don't you support us? Why do you want to make us, less than citizens? Blah blah blah. And Rubio is an idiot and roboted it and said. I just believe marriage is between one man and one woman. And he's like, but I've been married for a long time, and like you're trying to put me as a second-class citizen, blah blah blah.
Yeah, because it passed in 2009 in New Hampshire, it became legal.
Hold on. He goes, well, if you want to change it, you should have the legislature change it. And then walked away. Well, the legislature in New Hampshire did, in fact, change it. They passed in the legislature same-sex marriage in 2009. So Rubio literally has no idea what he's talking about. And even though this state did pass that, he's still not saying, well, then in your case, I'm really happy for you guys. You did it the right way. Like, way to go. He's just on this Robotron thing of like, one man, one woman, legislature, judicial activism.
Is that even a mistake?
Just like, blah, blah.
Because as far as Republican logic goes, that makes sense, even though it's completely untrue. Like in Republican logic world, Rubio is saying if gay marriage is illegal, and like they think abortion is illegal, and they think that Planned Parenthood is selling
activism that's unconstitutional,
baby
that's
parts,
allowing
right?
It to be
It's not
legal.
reality.
It's not actually legal because it's unconstitutional that the court makes these decisions or whatever nonsense garbage comes out of their mouths.
Yeah. So in a way, that's kind of typical party line, but it did look bad because it
went viral.
And
it went viral. Yeah, it was not good for him.
Yeah, and Rubio is just showing his weaknesses as a neophyte. I mean, some people have the gift for it. I mean, Obama was a neophyte too, but he had game, and Rubio's learning, and he might be a really, really dangerous, good politician one day. But he's in over his head right now, and I think that's really coming to the forefront.
He's doing this Palin thing where he's just memorizing things to say. But he doesn't really understand the context in which to use them, or when it's maybe not a good idea and I should kind of be on my feet a little bit. And so he's just blah, and then everyone's like,
and anything off the cuff
inappropriate.
is a nightmare.
That's not a right time to use that kind of thing. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know. It's hard to know if that affected people, or if it was the debate, or if he was just always going to do bad in New Hampshire because they just don't like him. I don't know, but some interesting stuff coming out of that. Looks like Ben Carson is squarely in last place. Carly Fiorina is in second to last.
Oh, Ben. He wanted to get his revenge on Cruz, but New Hampshire's not the place to do it. I won't talk too much about Carson, only to say I don't know if he's had to fire a bunch of staff. He's kind of running low on campaign money. I don't know if he wants to self-finance for too much longer, but he's a strange dude, and God only knows what motivates him.
Yep.
And the whole not coming out when called in the debate thing was really awkward and weird, and
so funny.
probably didn't help him. But Trump is running away with it now. He's if this holds up, he's gonna have like a 20-point win, and boy, are we not gonna hear the end of that.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's gonna totally bolster him, and he's gonna.
So, if this holds up, what does Fox do now? Because Trump's got leads already in South Carolina. I think he's leading in Nevada.
I mean, and Fox has basically just declared Rubio to be the winner of the primary, or the nomination after Iowa, because they want it so bad. They want it not to be Trump so bad that they've been really talking like, wow, Rubio this, Rubio that.
Well, here's my question. I mean, they've declared war on each other. That's kind of, I guess, quieted in the last few days. So does Fox circle the wagons and say, we're going to roll with this guy now? Or do they dig in and try to undo him and make backdoor deals with Reince Priebus?
He's not going to get. I mean, I guess there's probably how many black Republican voters are there in South Carolina, realistically? So maybe that doesn't matter.
No, that doesn't matter. No, they're all. and that we'll get to Hillary in a second, but she better hope and pray they stick with her, and they're going right for that as soon as this is done.
Yeah.
Bernie too, but yeah, what's Fox gonna do now? Are they gonna dig in and just try to derail Trump and make it like super mega ugly and start smearing him and bringing up the shit that nobody wants to talk about, like the alleged rape stuff and all of his gross sexist comments, like more than just Megyn Kelly on the debate stage. Like their anchors and stuff haven't really touched that.
No.
As far as I mean, I don't watch Fox News constantly, but I sort of keep.
They definitely haven't addressed it. I would know.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I don't see them supporting Trump. I don't see them switching over and saying.
I think they had their fingers crossed that he would either come in second or come in a weak close first with Rubio strong second, and it does not look like that's happening tonight. So now what? Do they try to jump back on the Jeb Bush bandwagon?
Yeah, they can't go with Kasich because he has no legs.
Are they just going to give up on Rubio after one bad primary?
I don't know. What are the polls doing in South Carolina?
It's Trump way out ahead with Cruz second.
Cruz second.
Yeah. Ted Cruz isn't going away just because he's not doing well here.
I mean,
Cruz has got organization and money and a lot of evangelical backing.
Tied at this point.
Yeah. So
I don't know. It's nuts.
And Christie's 8%, is that enough for him to stay in? I don't know. Maybe. Fiorina's done. This is probably her swan song. I think she closes up shop after tonight.
I think it's interesting, looking at the last debate that we watched, that she got more delegates, because she got a delegate, than Chris Christie, and he was allowed on the debate stage and she wasn't.
What?
And right now, she just beat Ben Carson, and he was on the debate stage and she wasn't.
I've given up on trying to figure out. Did they go with like national polls though?
They went with you scored the top 3 in Iowa or top 6 in one of 3 different national polls.
Okay.
And then they ended up with 7, but not her, and she was the only one left out.
Well, that's lame. Why didn't they just put her on?
Put her in. I don't know. And she won a delegate. Chris Christie did not. So I don't know.
Chris Christie certainly put on a better show.
Yeah. Well, we don't know. She wasn't there. Just saying.
Just saying.
Just saying.
Just saying.
Couldn't have one lady.
Meanwhile, it looks like Bernie's going to win big, anywhere from 20 points or so.
Yeah.
And then this is going to give him momentum. And now, do the solid, huge majority of black voters in places like South Carolina and North Carolina and Georgia and these other primaries that are coming up, are they going to stick with Hillary? Or are they going to jump ship for Bernie? Because remember, a lot of the problem wasn't that these African Americans didn't like Bernie; so they didn't know him.
Didn't know him.
They know Hillary Clinton. They don't know this guy.
Yep.
And now they're going to start knowing him a little better.
Yep.
And because
and his message, when he did that interview with Killer Mike, his message, according to Killer Mike, was really the economic message that the black community would help them tremendously.
Well, let's not group all African Americans together. Older African Americans don't know from Killer Mike, a lot of them.
Sure. But if we're trying to get the vote of people who don't often vote.
Sure, right.
So
but younger African Americans don't show up and vote either.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
That's who he's after.
Right.
Right? He's after the young, urban, less economic opportunity, less educational equality.
And there have been movements like that before, like Puff Daddy had the vote or die thing in 2004, and it didn't work.
Yeah. He's not really a community leader, though, the way that Killer Mike is. You know what I mean? He's been an activist since he was like 12 years old in Atlanta. Right. P. Diddy's whatever he is.
Well,
but anyway,
guess who Sanders is meeting with tomorrow?
Who?
Al Sharpton.
Interesting.
So he's going after that. And then Hillary is meeting with some folks in the African American community, their leaders, and it's going to be a fight.
Yes.
For the solely the African American community. Now, this is what I worry about, guys, and you Bernieites out there, listen to me very closely. If this becomes a thing where this is still and look, national polls still have Hillary ahead. Hillary is still, as of right now, the polls still look good for her in these southern states that are coming up. And if that holds, if she holds her African American support, don't get ugly, Bernie people.
Yep. Don't
get ugly with it. Don't get racial and ugly, and it's
in the same vein that you've been getting ugly and sexist recently.
Yeah, it's kind of gross that I have to mention that and say that, but I kind of do.
Yep. Some of the language that's being used about female Hillary supporters by some Bernie supporters, like a specific section of them, has been pretty gross and pretty ugly. And Bernie Sanders has come out and said, like, those are not my people. Don't vote for me. If you're going to talk to women that way, don't vote for me.
Yeah.
We don't want to have to go there with the black community.
No, God, no.
Please.
And not just to be cynically political, because it's disgusting and wrong. And if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, if you're really a Bernie Sanders, unless Bernie's attracting a bunch of fedora-wearing libertarians in drag or whatever, this shouldn't be part of your dialogue
progressive
anyway.
means equality and equality of access and opportunity for women. I mean, progressive ideals are very, very, very strongly in support of minority groups and people that are disenfranchised and marginalized in society. It's not a movement for a bunch of cis, straight, middle-class white dudes to sit around and jerk each other off about how great Bernie Sanders is. Like, it's not. It's about progressive ideals.
Why don't you say how you really feel, Angel?
Just saying.
Why don't you just cut through the treacle and, like, give us some straight talk about this, okay?
Yeah. Well, Bernie would agree with me if he were here.
I don't know if he'd use that terminology.
Maybe not, but he would not disagree. He wouldn't say I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Just saying. So
you keep talking. I'm going to check on the stream.
Okay. All right, so how do we feel, you guys? Give us some comments. Send us some feedback. If you have questions, let us know for sure. Looks like there's 15% of the delegates in New Hampshire right now, and it's the same. The really funny thing is people are still voting for Santorum and Huckabee, even though they've already dropped out. So 34 people voted for Santorum, even though he is no longer running. I guess he's still on the ballot because he just dropped out after Iowa. And something like 56 people voted for Huckabee. So those votes, I guess, don't do anything. I guess they just go away. Yeah, Bernie's ahead right now, 18 points. About 8,000 votes out of about 50,000, so he's definitely going to have a strong lead. And Trump is still sitting pretty at 34%. Again, I think that's the interesting thing about Trump. I don't think, even if Trump wins the nomination, let's just imagine a world in which Trump wins the nomination. He's only garnering 35% of the support of not just Republicans, but Republican primary voters. So even when he does really well, he has just a little over a third of the most right-wing members of the Republican Party. So let's say half of Republican voters vote in the primaries. Only a third of those like Trump. So if he wins the nomination, I don't see how he's getting more than a third of a half of the votes. I mean, I don't know, maybe he'll get a few more Republican voters who don't vote in the primaries, but there's no way he gets 51% of the general population. It's not going to happen. So I think that's something that Republicans that don't support him know, and that scares the shit out of them, which is why Fox News is so rabidly wanting to get rid of him. Also, I think Fox News, they just have the feud going, and they're all man babies, so, nobody wants to give up. But I think that's an interesting thing to think about, is even if he wins the nomination, then what? Then what? Then people who are not following politics right now, people who are not primary voters, are going to go, okay, my choice is Sanders or Clinton, right? Or Trump. And they're in a debate, and he says awful, vile, disgusting things about, Mexicans, Muslims, black people, and women. And there goes the vote. I mean, God, we would love it if Trump won. I would love nothing more than to have Trump be the nominee on the Republican side. It's a landslide victory for Democrats. But I don't know. I don't see it. I don't know. All right, so...
Well, I can tell you who's not tuned in.
Who's that?
Our Army friends.
Do they even know we're doing this?
They should. They do now.
Okay, good.
If nothing else.
That's good. We got 21% in on the Democratic side, and I think that's probably enough. I mean, they knew before. They knew at like 4% who was going to win, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like we said, we called this really early, so once again, if you're just tuning in now, Donald Trump's been declared the winner on the Republican side of the New Hampshire primary.
35% of the vote so far?
And Bernie Sanders has been declared the winner on the Democratic side, and he's holding close to 60%, right?
Yeah. Well, no.
Yeah, and they're just trickling in on the Republican side,
Yeah.
but like we said, it's not polls positions aren't moving really at
No.
all. They look like they're kind of locked
Second
in
place is kind of flipping back and forth between
Bush and Kasich.
Kasich and Cruz now.
Oh,
Cruz popped in from third place to
Cruise
or
control.
fourth to third. Yeah. So
That's my dream scenario. Let's have those two duke it out
Trump and Cruz.
for the most unelectable in Republican history.
Yeah. I'm in.
Go, because Cruz is going to do well also in South Carolina and North Carolina and Georgia and Mississippi and
Yep.
all those wonderful places.
Yep. Absolutely.
I'm just I'm just waiting for Larry David to pop out any second.
Neither one has given an acceptance speech yet. It's, I think, still kind of early. Yeah, there's going to be Bernie supporters here. They're all having a rally. They look like they're about 17, every one of them. Bunch of white college kids.
That's what we need. We need them to show up and be excited and stay excited. And if he's building a coalition like the Obama coalition, then this is going to be a train that's hard to stop. And I think that on the other side, there's just like, he's a socialist.
No, but he's not going to win. It's Bernie Sanders. No,
it's like, even in the last debate, they've only started throwing in like Bernie, it might be Bernie, in terms of like who they're attacking. They're just, it's Hillary. And
yeah, he was only mentioned, he's first mentioned really this last debate, and it was like 2-3 times.
Yeah.
And they just sort of go, I mean, he's a socialist.
Well, I think
move on, and you're like,
well, I think also their conventional wisdom is telling them that they would prefer Bernie and they think they can win, but it's an anti-establishment election, guys, and
they thought that they were going to run a train wreck, not run a train on, but run a train over Obama.
They would probably want to run a train on him too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's take a quick break, and we will be back at you guys when there's something else to report. There should be some acceptance speeches coming pretty quick, so as soon as those happen, we'll let you know how that goes. Or if anything major changes.
Okay. Well, I'll stay on since I just sent a message that
we're on.
That we're on.
If you see anybody get on, just let me know.
If you see something, say something.
That's right.
So one thing that I was going to point out earlier is why the Clinton people may have felt like they may have done better than the polls indicated in terms of how they did in 2008, and why that doesn't really work this time around in New Hampshire. And one of that reasons is obviously geographical, because Bernie is right next door. So, and the New Hampshireites will tell you when they're being polled they don't care about that. It has nothing to do with him living right next door, but it does in the fact that they know who he is. Remember, he's a known quantity here. And this is why, at least to date, why Hillary is still holding on to that southern firewall of hers to a certain extent, because Bernie in the South, and especially to Southern African American Democratic voters, is an unknown quantity. But they're running out of that. He's getting more and more known, and there's a lot of momentum, and people are starting to take him seriously. And he's showing up on Saturday Night Live. That counts, believe it or not. It shows like, okay, this is a legitimate candidate now, a person who might actually be president. And it's these subconscious kind of things start working their way into people's minds, where you start to take a candidate more seriously. And I think the Clinton campaign has to be tearing their hair out right now. And I've been very, very worried about this for them, that they were going to fall into a lot of the same traps they fell into in 2008 when things started to unravel for them. And tonight they may be on the cusp, to be honest. And let's see which direction they go. I think Bill wants to go in a direction of getting really, really negative. And that's not going to work. It's a different era, and I don't know if he's in touch with that. I don't know if she's in touch with that. I don't know if her advisors are in touch with that. If they go really, really, really negative and go after Bernie for being a socialist, or even just going negative, period, like they don't seem to realize that to try to get back hold and surpass Bernie, you got to make people really like Hillary more. And it can't just be I'm more electable. It's like you have to like me and be inspired by me more. And that's not the message. The message is, this guy's a socialist, or on some things like guns, he's not as liberal as I am, or what have you. It's all kind of negative in that direction. It's got to be more positive. It's got to be more excitement. It's got to be more about a movement. And she does that in fits and starts, but it's been a constant hum from Sanders in his campaign, and that's what has people buzzing. Um, if they turn around from this and start to panic and just go super, super negative, it's the death spiral all over again. It's 2008 and it's going to fall apart. And that's it. And it's sad in a way. I'm a Bernie supporter, but I feel bad for the Clinton campaign and for Hillary if she steps into this trap again, which they're hovering right over it, and I feels like they're on the cusp of doing that, and they can't do that. And we'll see if they figure that out. We'll know in the next couple days. We'll see how they react. If the reaction is just super, super throwing shade, as the kids say, at Bernie, then she's in real trouble. Because all that's gonna do is to the people that are already lined up behind him, and a lot of them are lined up behind him firmly. The only thing that's gonna do is lock him in more and lock her out. She's got to, and it's getting late in the game. She's got to sell herself as being more not just likable in a sense of the very vague term they throw out of likability, like inspiring, excited. You got to get people excited about coming to vote for you. And right now she's lacking as far as that goes. So we'll see what happens here. She's going to come out, looks like, talk to supporters soon. She'll obviously put the best spin and the best face on it. But it's a big night for Bernie. It's a huge night for Trump. And I'm excited to hear what Trump has to say. Right now, if these numbers hold up, it's a disastrous, cataclysmically disastrous night potentially for Marco Rubio, who's right now staring at fifth behind Trump, Kasich, Bush, and Cruz. And by a lot. In fact, Christie is nipping at his heels right now in the sixth spot. Rubio's drawing 10% right now, and he's been locked into that 10% for the last hour or so as the results have been trickling in. Pulling up the rear, you got Carly, who's pulling 4%. Not terrible, I guess, for her. And then Carson's got 2%. And Rand and Huckabee, Rand is pulling in 1% just because he's got a name in New Hampshire, even though he dropped out. And no percentage points for Santorum, but apparently 44 people braved the snow to vote for Rick Santorum. All right. I'm figuring that's 44 elderly people who didn't know he dropped out. Unless you wanted to stand in the snow and vote for a guy who dropped out, who has absolutely no chance of winning. And that is your democratic right. And that's what's wonderful about democracy in the primary process. You go. You go, Santorum supporters. There's 44 of them. 44 that were willing to come out for Rick tonight. That says something. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to take a break now, too. And we'll be back in just a little bit. This is live streaming coverage of Irreverent Testimony. And we'll see you in just a bit. Yeah, start broadcast. Go ahead and do that.
Done?
Okay, and then start talking.
Hello? Can you hear me? We're just doing a sound check because one of our viewers said it was hard to hear us, so I'm just making sure that it works, that you guys can hear us. Check, check, check. Check, check, check. Nothing new to report so far. Everyone's still holding steady. John Kasich seriously going to get second place, which is ridiculous. Can you?
Sounds good to me.
Really?
I mean, it's cranks, but...
Say hi, Lily. Come here. Say hi. Look. Stosh. Say hi.
Yeah, I can even hear myself from the other room saying it sounds good to me, so.
Okay. I guess we're okay. How do I stop it?
It's okay, nobody's watching it. Stop, Lily.
Lily like drooled
Oh,
or something all over my couch.
Right there?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Or somebody spilled water, or I don't know.
Spilled water?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't have water there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Blame Lily. Although maybe it was Blixa.
It's like, I've been sitting over here, guys.
Kami, somewhat worried. Oppose Muslim ban, 27. And then what was the other one?
I don't know.
Pina coladas and copyright. That was like a desperate meow. Like, love me!
Please.
Oh wait, we're still streaming, babe.